When you break down an NFL roster, you pretty much have 10 different skill groups across the team. You have your quarterbacks, your running backs, your wide receivers, your tight ends, each offensive and defensive line, linebackers, corners, safeties, and special teams. I've not seen someone do this yet, so I figured I'd do it for you guys. I'm going to rank all 10 position groups on the Jacksonville Jaguars today, and we're going to see what are the all-star position groups on this team, and then what are the real duds on this team. Obviously starting off with the number one spot, I've got the linebackers. The additions of Foye Oluokun almost had 200 tackles, 7th all-time in total tackles in league history for one single year. Travon Walker, athletic freak. Devin Lloyd, Chad Muma. Muma is a potential green dot guy. Lloyd's just another athletic freak that can play off-ball linebacker. This has the opportunity to become one of the best units in the National Football League very quickly. And then not only that, Josh Allen is also somebody that is going to benefit from Walker's presence. The drafting of Walker really gives the Jaguars hope that Allen will be what he once was in his rookie year whenever he broke the franchise rookie sack record when he had 10.5 sacks. Both Lloyd and Muma also surpassed the 100 tackle mark in 2021 for their respective teams. Lloyd with 111 and then Muma with 142. There's a lot of optimism surrounding this linebacking core. And then with Mike Caldwell's experience with linebackers from Tampa Bay and the expected 3-4 base defense they're going to be running, I think there's a lot of deserved expectations for this for this linebacking group. Speaking about the front seven, I think this defensive line is also another group that is going to have a bunch of high expectations going forward. Obviously, 2021 saw the additions of Roy Robertson-Harris and Malcolm Brown, two guys that I think really did make a good impact on this Jacksonville Jaguars team last year. Ultimately, the team wasn't the best, but they did make good strides as Jaguars. They each had 3 sacks. Brown had 14 pressures. Robertson-Harris had 35 pressures. There was a good amount of pressure coming from that interior of the offensive line. And then they went ahead and brought in another massive space eater for that defensive line, Foley Fatukasi. And he's someone that's not going to dazzle the stat sheet, but if you think about think about Terrence Knight and what made him so good. He was just a giant human being in the defensive line that just ate up a bunch of space, and he got tackles when he needed to. He was a monster in the run game. Now think of Fatukasi just as a smaller pot roast in the sense of that size aspect. Now Fatukasi said in this offseason he does not just see himself as a run stuffer, he also sees himself as a pass rusher and someone that can get pressure on the interior. So I'm really excited to see what the three of them, Malcolm Brown, Roy Robertson-Harris, thank you, Urban Miller, and then Foley Fatukasi. I'm really excited to see what those three do, along with Jay Tufele and all the other depth pieces that the Jaguars have for that rotation on the interior of the defensive line. Now, this is going to be the first offensive group of the video. It's the quarterback room. The talent of the golden child himself, Trevor Lawrence, is enough to carry this quarterback room. Obviously, he struggled through year one with Urban Miller and the 38 drops that led the league. But I think with some competency in the coaching, and I think he's going to have a huge jump, not only from the stat perspective, but just from the eye test. I think you're going to see a lot better performance coming out of Trevor Lawrence. And then C.J. Beathard's just someone that can be a serviceable backup when he's needed. The team threw him in. I think Trevor hurt his hand in one of the games for a couple plays. Beathard comes in. He completes both of his passes. They get a first down. So the quarterback room is actually absolutely a room that I really do like going into 2022. Next is the running back room. Back-to-back defensive picks 1-2. Now we got back-to-back offensive picks 3-4. I do think the running back room is actually a really good room. It's just a really injured room right now. Obviously, Travis Etienne, he's about a month ago, he did say he's about 85-90% on the foot. And then obviously, James Robinson is still nursing that Achilles tear. But when you look at them when they're healthy, James Robinson is a former 1,000-yard running back, and he would have repeated as that 1,000-yard running back. He was on pace to if he had actually had good usage, and if Urban Miller didn't have this weird man crush on Carlos Hyde, and then Travis Etienne, he's someone that the Jaguars are going to be relying on very early in 2022. And then Etienne, there's a lot of expectations that he's going to be able to carry that load because he was a 3-down back at Clemson with Trevor Lawrence. And he also, while he was that 3-down back, he went on to be the all-time ACC leading rusher. There's been some incredible running backs to come out of the Atlantic Coast Conference, and Travis Etienne is the best. And then Snoop Conner, someone that was brought in to be that goal line thumper. He kind of has a similar play style to James Robinson. He's very quick in a first 5-yard burst. And, while he was at Ole Miss, he scored 26 touchdowns. There's absolutely something to be said for that. And I do think, you're not going to see a whole lot of Toby Gerhardt. First and goal from the 1, doesn't score. Second and goal from the 1, doesn't score. Third and goal from the 1, doesn't score. Okay, fourth and goal from the 1, he's got to get in this time. Nope, doesn't get in again. I don't think you're going to see that kind of stuff out of Snoop Conner. Overall, this running back room does have a lot of reason for optimism surrounding it. Now, we're going to jump back to the defensive side of the ball, the corners. Tyson Campbell, he has himself poised to have a A.J. Terrell level jump in performance and kind of recognition on a national scale, the same way A.J. Terrell from the Falcons had that jump. And then also Shaq Griffin, he almost had a half dozen interceptions drop right off his hands, and he's already made that major effort in 2022. I think I heard something where he's catching 100 balls before he starts every training and practice session. So you love to see that. He's really making an effort to make sure that he doesn't have that issue again, because those are game-changing plays. If you have half a dozen interceptions over the course of a year, you're talking about the top 10 probably in the league in interceptions for the year. And then Darius Williams is just someone that can be a reliable third corner. Ultimately, he's someone that has hauled in incredible interceptions in his time with Los Angeles. And then, even if Campbell doesn't make that A.J. Terrell level jump in 2022, I think he can still have a very good year. And just because he doesn't play at that All-Pro level, if he plays if he flirts with Pro Bowl level, that is still someone that is incredibly talented and will be a much-needed player on that back half of the Jaguars roster. I'm very excited to see what the corners do in 2022. Now, we are to the back half of this list, and they're in the back half of the list for a reason. But there's some groups in here that I really don't think have a whole lot of reason to be back here, other than the fact that there's just a lot of questions surrounding their position room. There's not a whole lot to lean back on, and there's a whole lot of questions surrounding massive gaps within their room. Ultimately, the wide receivers are number 6 for me. They, it's just slot guys on slot guys on slot guys. Laviska Shenault, probably a slot guy. Marvin Jones, he makes his money whenever he's not the number 1. When he had Kenny Golladay in Detroit, he was making his money. That's why the Jaguars paid him what they paid him, because of the numbers and the stuff he produced in Detroit when he was opposite of Kenny Golladay. And then Christian Kirk, he has an insane stat line whenever you look at him playing from inside the slot. One of them's obviously going to have to kick outside, play that true X position, unless Kevin Austin does do what people are projecting him to do. But to expect an undrafted free agent to go from 0 to hero and play that as a number 1 wide receiver, I think is a huge reach and a massive exaggeration of what he possibly can do. But this group did lead the NFL in drops in 2021 for the Jaguars. 38 drops. Obviously, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones weren't a part of that group, but they were brought in to fix that. And they didn't really bring in a marquee weapon to this room. They had the opportunity to go get a wide receiver in this year's draft. They ultimately didn't. They roll with what they have. And I do expect a surprise to come from this room, but due to the fact that I have no idea where it's going to come from, it's why I'm grading them this low. There's a bunch of slot guys that I think one of them's going to have a really good year. I just have zero idea who it is. Number 7, the offensive line. If the wide receivers have questions about them, the offensive line has even more questions about them. They have really good pieces. Cam Robinson has been continuing to improve. It's going to be a second year with Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence is someone that really understands how to stand in a pocket and then leave it when he needs to. Robinson has had his pressure number drop 3 years in a row. And I do think if he has that 4th drop, he's really going to enter a good category across the National Football League. Brandon Scherff is one of the best right guards in the league. Now, when you talk about the questions around this team, 60% of the line is not set right now. We have a left tackle. We have a right guard. We don't have a for sure starter at left guard, center, and right tackle. Now, Luke Fortner looks like he's going to be the next great Jaguars center. He's going to have some consistency there if he does become the pick. Is Walker Little going to play right tackle? Is Jawan Taylor going to play right tackle? Does Ben Barch play left guard? Does Shatley play center? Does he play left guard? Who knows right now? Who knows what the Jaguars are thinking with this offensive line room? So for me, that is just somewhere I just can't give them a solid ranking when I have no idea what the room looks like with the starting five. I know what it looks like as a depth 8, but I don't know what it looks like as the starting five. So for that reason, they're they're 7th on my ranking right now. Number 8, the tight ends. Evan Ingram, he's someone, if he had the stats that he had in New York, in Jacksonville, he'd arguably the greatest pass-catching tight end in Jaguars history. He's someone that, if he brought that to Jacksonville, it's something the Jaguars haven't seen since the very, very early days of Mercedes Lewis. But he does have the injury concerns, and, New York Giants fans were dogging him when the Jaguars signed him, saying that this guy is just a drop machine. And when you're talking about a team that had led the league in drops in 2021 with 38, you're bringing in a guy that has potential drop issues from his former team. So, a bit of an iffy thing for me right there. And then Dan Arnold has never been the number 1 tight end in his career. He's kind of just been a bounce around tight end. Looked like he was really coming on for the Jaguars, but unfortunately he gets hurt. We don't see what he really looks like going through his first year with Trevor Lawrence fully. So, it's going to be a battle. Who's going to probably be that number 1 tight end? It's probably going to end up being Ingram. But in a 2 tight end set, I'm very confident in these two to get the job done. But with it just being them two and Ingram with the drops, Dan Arnold, we have no idea what he is. They're number 8 for me on this list. Now, the safeties and the special teams. That's not good company to be in when you're talking about they have the opportunity to be the last kid picked in kickball. The safeties do. Unfortunately, the special teams ends up being that last kid picked for kickball. They just stick them out in right field and just stand there and pick daisies. But the safeties, Rashawn Jenkins is a serviceable safety. He's not anything flashy. He's not anything bad. He's not anything good. He's just going to play out there, and he's going to play a position that you need, and he's going to play it okay. He's not going to dazzle you or anything like that. But Andrew Wingard is a name that just draws wincing and just bemoaning out of Jaguar fans, because when I mention his name, I think everyone just immediately went to one bad play that they remember Andrew Wingard having. I can think of just in my head, I can just think of all the different emotions I have when I think of Andrew Wingard playing safety. Now, Andre Sisco is someone that has shown a ton of promise and could be an incredible asset for this Jaguar secondary, but until we see it on the field full time, it's just spots of promise, just like Dan Arnold is. And Daniel Thomas is someone that can fill in an injury. He made a couple plays week 18 against the Colts, but ultimately he's just a quality backup in my opinion. The safeties are number 9 for me, and then number 10, Logan Cook is someone that has been one of the best, if not the best, punters in the league, and he's been the most consistent Jaguar on the roster for the past couple of years, which is really scary to think about. And he's as much of a great punter as he is. The Jaguars don't have a kicker right now. They might. You can go to Jaguars.com right now and you'll see kickers on their depth chart. Who the hell knows if they're actually going to be the starting kicker? Can anyone just off the top of their head name the starting kicker? I can't. I'm not gonna learn the kicker's name in May when there's a great possibility they bring in 4 camp legs and then Jimmy the accountant, just like Matthew Wright was. What was he? He was like an accountant. Working down in Orlando, and he gets a phone call, and he becomes the Jaguars kicker. He booms 2 50-yarders in London, kicks it for them for the year. Josh Lambo was drafted in the MLS to be a goalie. He ends up becoming an NFL kicker. Who knows where the Jaguars are going to get their kicker for 2022? And with half the room having uncertainty, you got to be the last spot. I can't imagine a position group like that having 2 positions really and having one of them having no idea who it is. Can't do that. So just as a quick rundown, I do have the linebackers as the best position group on this 2022 roster right now in May. The defensive line is number 2 for me. Quarterback is the first offensive room for me at number 3. Running back at 4. Corners at 5. Wide receivers at 6, offensive line at 7, tight ends at 8, safeties at 9, and special teams as the 10th best room in the Jaguars locker room right now. Ultimately, I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and I do think there's a lot of optimism and a lot of questions that are going to be answered. And I'm probably gonna get a ton of hate, whenever this video goes up, and especially during the season if somebody finds this video and they go, "Why the hell did this guy have, Andre Cisco talking about we don't know what he is. Look at what he is. He has 7 interceptions." But who knows? Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about my list right now. And thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe and go Jaguars.
How about them Jags?
Come on, Joe! Ah! Thank you, baby! Thank you! You making blood come from my damn mouth!